How's it, everyone? Just thought to have a little chat. Things on my mind. I went for a run this morning, and I've really drawn such an interest in personal development. I think that is quite a topic nowadays. Definitely really hit a boost, even since, and specifically since the COVID times. We are in a time now where mental health has always been something that's been an area of importance as long as humans have been humans. But nowadays, with so many things that contribute towards poor mental health, accessing tools that actually contribute towards mental health, it's so important nowadays as well. There are so many distractions in life, not just items of distraction, but just the pace of life is incredible. Technology contributes, and the fluidity and the efficiency of technology alone, as helpful and as useful as it is, contributes towards the need for new techniques to maintain mental health and stuff like that. So I just thought I'd have a little chat while I'm on my way somewhere. Excuse the steering wheel in the way. I don't really have a little hands-free kit, so I'm leaning this up against the front of the car. So I am not distracted. I'm driving well. Thanks for asking. It is November. I think I saw somewhere there the month of mental health, male mental health. Whatever. I think every day should be everyone's focus on mental health. So I just want to touch on a few things. Like I said, I've drawn quite an interest to the topic. Recently just taken up a bit of a course where I've tried to learn as much, and I'll continue to learn this, to study this topic and grow. I think in a broader sense, it's a topic that isn't totally understood even by the professionals, and that obviously being the brain and how we function at a neurological level, not just emotional and psychological. And I think recently, they say, when I say recent, 10, 15 years or so, because of technology and neurological imaging and the ability to actually, without being dangerous in a sense, actually look at the inner workings and functionings of the various brain structures and how they contribute towards our mental health, our physiological state of being, and our actions and emotional state of being, but also how those things, our emotions and our actions in life and experiences in life, contribute towards our neurological state and our brain structure and things like that. Fascinating topic. Still trying to wrap my mind around it. Excuse the pun. And chewing on a lot of information that's come from various sources. But I must say, a lot of what I've learned has really been of, great thanks to, I don't know if you've heard the person, Dr. Andrew Huberman, very popular on social media nowadays under the topic, and really just laying out so many healthy nuggets and useful bits of information and tools through his podcasts and videos. So it's, if ever you do want to go on to the various popular platforms, YouTube certainly has a lot of his podcasts there. They are quite lengthy, but again, you can pace yourself through it. And yes, thoroughly enjoying it. It is a bit to chew through. He is a neuroscientist, and so there are times in those videos where you may need to muscle your way through a bit of medical lingo and a lot of stuff which may naturally go over one's head. But he definitely does incorporate practical tools and handles that assist whatever topic he's discussing. So I have definitely learned a lot through them, and I know recently he's and I mean, again, these can be quite controversial topics, especially discussed on social media, because everyone's got an experience and everyone's carrying an opinion. But I have carried personal thoughts and feelings which I wouldn't air too much, because I'm not a professional. I'm not a medical professional. But sometimes we can string a few bits of common sense together and wonder why people are or aren't the way they are or aren't. And what I mean by that basically is, when it comes to mental health, whether it's anxiety, PTSD, depression, depression and things like that. Yes, there are varying degrees of these particular disorders and states of mental health. But those degrees could vary from injuries to traumatic experiences, just a lifestyle of experiences or specific experiences, whatever the case might have been. And, when someone ventures, which I've done in the past before and therefore have refrained from it since, into discussing these things, one often gets a bit of a recoil reaction from the broader community to very quickly say things like, you don't know what we go through. If it's depression or whatever the case might be, or those things don't work, I've tried it before. And again, it's not a one size fits all. I understand that, and I'm not going to keep coming back to qualify myself on that statement. So yes, these are different, certainly handles that I certainly have felt this way on a very general level, but very comfortable to have recently listened to a podcast by Andrew Huberman that kind of resonated with that sense, with that kind of feel that I had. So I am flying a little bit more confidently now, where I can lean on someone's professional statements, well-researched and well-studied statements that resonate with how I have felt. And without going into too much detail on these, because there's quite a bit to say, and I've learned so much on these, but what he unpacks is particularly 6 pillars that contribute towards mental health. And it's not like a platter. I know there does exist a particular study and presentation which has been referred to as the platter of mental health, which is closely linked to this, but I kind of like the pillars that Andrew Huberman does present. But it's not a platter in the sense of pick 2 or 3 of these and see how they work for you. Life isn't easy, and I'm sure we can all agree with that. But it's all of these aspects which I'll list. And again, I'll try hard not to go into detail. Perhaps a different chat, I can unpack some very exciting, very interesting details on these. And they may sound kumbaya. So if you're holding thumbs, hoping for some radical different thing to come beaming through the clouds, these are them. Once I'm able to start unpacking it, but it is psychology. But it's not kumbaya, holding hands around the campfire. They are neurological science. It's ingrained and embedded within our physical being. And so if you do struggle with emotional and physiological states of poor health, these factors, these principles which I'll mention now, do need to become habit. And I'll throw in a 7th one, which I've just remembered now, which he also speaks about in a different podcast. I know I'm bouncing around now, but I just want to lay a bit of a platform, because I know what happens. Those who do struggle with depression often retort with, as I've mentioned before, you've tried that doesn't work, it's only medication and things like that. And as Andrew Huberman mentions in this particular podcast that I'm referring to, yes, psychiatric assistance, professional advice and involvement is key for depending on what the state might be. And this medication not only may it work, but it may be very important and necessary. But if they are being prescribed and taken in absence of the 6 pillars that I'll mention, then I can guarantee you, I will, because this is my video, but I will lean on his guarantee that you are not going to reach the level of recovery you're hoping for. Medication does come with, of course, the correct medication does come with the required amounts of chemistry that the body perhaps is lacking or perhaps has too much of, depending on what the state might be. But they are not to be, the medication first is not to be seen as the replacement in absence of these 6 pillars. And definitely, if your reliance is on medication alone, you aren't going to find, like I said, you're not going to find the recovery that you hope for. And so basically, in no particular order, these 6 pillars refer to just lifestyle, and they are incredibly important. So sleep is one of them. There's no order of it, but sleep is one of them. The neuroscience around sleep, and even recently the incredible mental health benefits of sleep. What actually happens while we sleep? Not only is it vital to our physiology and our mental health and well-being, but it is actually so interesting when you start unpacking it. You can't not be interested and fascinated by it. But I'll unpack it at a later stage. But sleep, and good proper sleep, the hours allocated to sleep, the hours building up towards going to sleep. If you're doing the wrong things there, that can affect your sleep. And of course, sleep is incredibly important. The time spent sleeping, that can be fairly subjective, but certainly significant sleep and good deep sleep is incredibly important both to our physiology and also our mental health, psychology and neuroscience. It's more than both. So sleep, vital. I'll try and list them without unpacking. The other thing is sunlight. And I like how he unpacks it more. I've listened to a lot of his talks on sunlight, and very fascinating. And I'm not talking about the sun as in vitamin D and healthy exposure to our bodies through sun, but I'm actually referring to the photons in the air, the actual sunlight, the light that reaches our eye, and the impact of that light, those photons, onto our retina, and from there onto our brain. And so sunlight, coupled with that, is the exposure to darkness. Now that might pique your interest, but without going into too much detail, we all are engaged in what's called a circadian rhythm, and that is generally our 24-hour sleep-wake cycle, and our biological clock. I'm sure you've heard about our biological clock, and that's in essence what is being referred to, and that is essentially controlled, initiated, and dictated by our exposure to light and darkness when it comes to the evenings and things like that. When I referred earlier to technology, just that prolonged to very late night exposure to our devices and the light. I'm not even referring to the content we might be exposed to, purely just that blue light rays through extensive hours of our lives. That alone wreaks havoc with our biology, our chemistry, and our endocrine system, our hormones. I'd love to unpack these things, but I'm trying hard not to. So what have we got? Sleep, vital. Exposure to sun, and coupled with that darkness, vital. Nutrition, we know, a good oldie. Our diet, what we eat, the healthy fats and carbohydrates. There are so many, without going into detail, because even diet alone, when it comes to vegan meats, sources of protein and nutrients, intermittent fasting, there's a lot out there. I'm not going to try and unpack anything and get myself all tongue-tied in here, but nutrition is definitely something that has a direct impact on our physiology and definitely our neuroanatomy. In fact, when you look at, they say our brain, which is about 2% mass compared to the weight of our bodies, yet the functioning of the brain uses up 20 to 25% of the energy that our entire body possesses. So it's not just a case of surviving a gym session that we eat healthy, but just thinking and mental capacity, processing, and just our central nervous system and our brain's functioning uses up 20 to 25% of the energy supply our body receives. So that's fascinating. So that's nutrition. We've got sleep, we've got exposure to light and darkness, nutrition. Another very important one, and there's another neuroscientist, name is, I hope I get it right, Andrew Huberman, and I've listened to a little bit of his take on it, but just connectivity and social interaction, the importance of how our brain structures are physically affected by healthy relationships and interaction with people. There's also a good talk on the neuroscience of gratitude and how that impacts our nervous system and our brain. And that's not just gratitude in the sense of being grateful for what people do for us, but specifically the neuroscience around, and I love how this also just ties into my spiritual journey as well. It just resonates with it as well. But not psychologically, neuroanatomically, structures of the brain affected by exercising gratitude, just how the chemistry in our brain reacts to receiving gratitude from people through things we've done for them, and of course us being grateful for what people do for us. So there's so much neuroscience around that, a lot to unpack when it comes to interaction with people and healthy relationships, and of course the devastation of not so healthy interaction. Quickly a little respin. What have we got? Sleep, light, darkness, that's number 2. Nutrition, connection with social connection. 6 pillars, 2 more. Oh yeah, exercise, how could I forget? Exercise, and a lot to unpack there as well. Very exciting. We know exercise is good for our body and our mind, but it's so exciting to learn exactly why. If you're the type of person that loves just to receive a handle, hey listen, exercise is good, all right, great, let me go and exercise. But if you could learn exactly why, what is the physiological and neurological impact of a good exercise session, a good aerobic session, a good weightlifting, resistance training session, of course those which don't affect, and negatively impact our health. But science has also proven the impact of routine exercise. And again, I'm not talking about training for something. It doesn't matter what your weight might be, or it doesn't matter who you are. If you are a human being with a nervous system, you should be exercising. Not necessarily training for something. We're not all in the capacity to do that, but a healthy routine of exercise and training is very important in terms of, and there's probably a whole list that I still need to learn myself, but of course the flow of oxygen through our bodies, and how it impacts our organs and our brain, of course. A lot of that I've learned recently on the impact of proper and correct exercise on our memory. It's been said that that particular part of our brain called the hippocampus, particularly responsible for the function of formation of memories, actually grows physically. Neurogenesis, the formation and the growth of new neurons developing, particularly in that region of the brain, through exercise. And I'm winging it now. There, it was a while back since I heard this, so I'll take a swing at it. But you can certainly research it yourself. But there's a particular chemical called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, and this particular chemical is essentially released from the skeletal muscles, the muscles connected to bones, and that when we engage in high intensity, mid to high intensity exercise on a routine level. And what these chemicals do is they are the ones actually responsible for signaling increased performance, healthy performance in our brain, and particularly the hippocampus, which, like I said already, is essential for memory formation, learning, and processing memory and information, among other things. And so that alone is a nice scientific reason to exercise, because it does increase not only your mental capacity to engage in thought and memory, but also the actual physical size of certain brain structures that lean towards the evidence of neurogenesis, which, like I said, is the creation of more brain cells in that particular area. So that's our 5th one, exercise. 6th one is mental health, just general mental health, the thoughts we engage in, and how we respond to stresses in life. Now, stress is a part of life. If we are trying to live a life or lead towards, or if our journey in mental health is one. My word, that truck is not looking good on the road. Let me just try and pass. Traffic's a little busy here. Sometimes we engage in a journey of mental health with the intention to free ourselves from or avoid stressors, stressful stimuli in life. That's not going to be a happy journey for you. Life is full of stresses from different angles, whether it be people, circumstances, situations, job loss, new job opportunities. Stress is a part of life. It's managing stress, understanding stress, that becomes what's fundamental. And so, of course, when I say manage stress, finding ways to alleviate stress if it's an instantaneous incident. And on that, also quite interestingly, Andrew Huberman speaks of what he refers to as the physiological sigh, which oftentimes we do anyway, just without realizing it. But he explains the neuroscience around that, a deep breath, and exactly how to take it. I didn't do it properly there, and he would correct me most certainly if he ever did see this. But just from lung capacity to the production and the pushing through of more oxygen towards the different body parts and stuff like that. But it's vital. I'd love to unpack on each of these pillars in a lot more detail. But definitely managing your mental health and your stress reactions during the course of the day, because among a number of things, we've got cortisol, which is produced in our adrenal glands as a reaction to a stressful experience, whether it's instantaneous stress, someone's given you a fright, or whether it's a circumstantial stress, or nowadays perceived stress, which is really the killer. Because, like the cliche goes with psychology, there's certain parts of our system that are geared towards reacting when we are chased by a saber-tooth, whatever. I love how people always go back to primitive times to explain that. It helps to make sense, but we do have a limbic system in our brain which is reactional to stressful situations and fear and anxiety. But it's important we learn the handles and exercise and practice the handles to try and correct perception if need be. We're not always being chased. A lot of our stresses aren't always as a result of being chased by a lion down the road. A lot of it's perceived, and because it's perceived, we often hold on to stressful situations, and because of that, not only is it damaging our mind in terms of the thoughts that we engaged with, but it keeps that unhealthy charge of cortisol and adrenaline and hormonal and chemical flows within our body. Excuse me for not using the correct terminologies there, but also a very interesting topic. What actually triggers, what actually happens right from our brain to our spinal cord out to all our various vital organs when we are experiencing a stressful situation. And so if we don't grab a hold of mental health and put into perspective what's happening and try and get out of what is called limbic hijack. In other words, we don't have to decide to stress. It's reactional. But we do need to decide to calm down and to put things into perspective and to be rational. That is a conscious decision which takes up a whole different part of the brain or parts of the brain to engage in. And unfortunately, our limbic system, which is predominantly engaged with fear and our reaction to stresses, as well as then parts of the brain that are responsible for higher level thinking, like reasoning and common sense and rational thought, they don't work simultaneously. You're either led by fear or you're being rational. And like I said, fear can come autonomically at times, automatically at least. Rational thinking needs to be decided on, and because of that, it is a skill to develop, and it is something that we need to practice. Habits can be formed. It does take time to create habits, and that alone is a topic on its own. So yeah, I hope that you've enjoyed the little chat. I'm almost at my destination, and hope you guys have a lovely day. all the best on your journey, as we are all part of life, and always find the right people to speak to if there is something that troubles you. Difficult situations are temporary, as tough as they may feel, and I am hoping to unpack on a number of specific things that I have mentioned in this little chat. But all the best. Thanks so much for listening if you got this far.